At Nordic Visitor, our local travel consultants have crafted a number of self-driving tours of Iceland that make road trips around the country easy and enjoyable. If you're looking to plan your own driving holiday to this fascinating Nordic nation, read our straightforward guide for insider knowledge. Driving around Iceland, how many days will you need? When planning a driving holiday around Iceland, the most important factor to plan for is how long the journey will take. Many people want to know if a 6-day or 7-day vacation will give them enough time to see Iceland's numerous sights. The simple answer to this question is yes. Ultimately, though, the length of your Iceland road trip will depend upon several factors, including your desired itinerary, the season and weather conditions, whether you visit areas that aren't directly accessible from the ring road, how much time you spend in urban areas as opposed to out on the rural roads. Stick solely to the ring road and, in theory, you can drive around Iceland in about 17 hours, road and weather conditions permitting. But we strongly recommend against this for safety and enjoyment reasons. About Iceland's ring road. The ring road, also known as Route 1, is the nation's main artery. Built to connect the settlements on the coast, the road loops around Iceland in a rough circle. Driving around Iceland on the ring road lets you explore at your own pace, enjoying astonishing scenery as you travel from one stunning natural attraction to the next. It's worth noting that the interior region of country, the highlands of Iceland, is largely impassable. Mountain roads here can be difficult to drive along and are closed in the winter months. If you want to diverge from the ring road to explore the highlands, you'll need a 4-wheel drive vehicle. Find out more about 4WD Adventures, view our 4x4 Highland tours. Distance of the ring road. Wondering how far it is to drive around Iceland? In simple terms, it's 828 miles, the length of Route 1. Of course, the exact distance you travel will depend upon your itinerary. The ring road passes through most of the country's major regions and attractions, but you'll probably want to get off the beaten track now and again to visit the more remote sites. Visiting the western Snæfellsnes Peninsula, often described as Iceland in miniature, requires a diversion onto routes 54 and 60. This detour will add roughly 170 miles onto your journey. The West Fjords in the northwest require a similar diversion from Route 1, as does any excursion into the highlands. Iceland driving limits and key stats. The ring road is almost entirely paved with asphalt, which means the speed limit for the vast majority of your journey will be 90 km per hour. In urban areas, the speed limit is 50 km per hour. On rural paved roads, the speed limit is 90 km per hour. On rural gravel roads, the speed limit is 80 km per hour. In Iceland, single-lane bridges are a regular feature of the rural roads. These require you to slow down and allow other vehicles to pass. It's also common to come across animals on the roads, which can cause delays. Ring road itinerary ideas. To give you an idea of different driving holiday styles and how long they take, here are a few itineraries of varying lengths. 2-3 days not recommended. Technically, travelers who are seriously short on time could split the circuit across 2 or 3 days, driving for between 6 and 9 hours each day. But ask our local travel advisors and you won't find one person who recommends this approach. If you only have 2 or 3 days to explore Iceland, try a different experience. Squeezing the drive into such a short period of time seriously restricts options when it comes to where to stop for photos and where to stay. Plus, it doesn't account for any road closures or diversions. If visiting for 2 or 3 days, try a Reykjavik city break with excursions or a series of day tours including the Golden Circle. See Iceland's popular highlights in 3 days with the Golden Circle Express. 6-7 days. Touring Iceland over 6 or 7 days is a great way to make the most of the country's major attractions. Starting and finishing in vibrant Reykjavik, in Iceland's southwestern corner, you can head south and then east on the ring road, making stops in coastal towns such as Vik and Hofen, and enjoying major attractions such as the Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon. In the north, you can make stopovers at Mývatn, the perfect place to see the northern lights during the winter months, and the tranquil farmlands of Skagafjörður before heading back south to Reykjavik. Plan your action-packed week for the summer months and you'll benefit from all that additional daylight. 10-14 days. If you want to make the most of Iceland's many natural splendors, we highly recommend that you spend between 10 and 14 days here. Not only will you be able to travel to areas of the country not accessible from the ring road, you'll have the luxury of time when it comes to photo stops, bathroom breaks, and mini excursions. Spending 10 to 14 days in Iceland gives you plenty of time to diverge from the ring road, heading out to tiny coastal towns such as Húsavík, the whale-watching capital of Europe. You'll have the opportunity to tour the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, visiting the ancient Snæfellsjökull National Park, and exploring lava fields, volcanic craters, waterfalls, and picturesque fishing villages. Best of all, 10 to 14 days in Iceland gives you ample time to immerse yourself in Icelandic culture. Visit tiny Bekkadriti to hear tales of the local elves and fairies. Stop over at Stong, the replica Viking farm that boasts historically accurate buildings, and learn about the history of these fearsome invaders. If you're a keen foodie, a trip of this length will let you experience a rich variety of Icelandic cuisine. Sample fresh cod cheeks, Icelandic lamb, and specialities like hardfiskur. Dine on wild reindeer in the east, langoustines in the south, and local fast food favorites like pilsner in Reykjavik. However long you decide to spend in Iceland, remember that your plans may have to change depending on the season. In the winter months, there are only 3 to 4 hours of sunlight per day. Roads can become icy, meaning you may have to drive more slowly than anticipated, and certain passes may be closed in bad weather. What months can you drive around Iceland? The beauty of a driving holiday around Iceland is that different seasons bring different benefits, meaning it's an excellent year-round destination. As we've already highlighted, driving during the winter months can be tricky but shouldn't put you off. Driving around Iceland in summer. High season for Iceland is summer. In June, July and August, visitors are attracted by the promise of endless daylight, scenic hikes, and the ability to access remote passes in the highlands. Driving around Iceland in July is ideal if you want to avoid trickier weather conditions or if you'd like to head up into the mountains in a 4WD. It's worth bearing in mind that if you're not used to Iceland's midnight sun, you may have to remind yourself to make stops to avoid fatigue. Take a look at these Iceland summer tours. Driving around Iceland in winter. Low season for Iceland is winter. Mountain roads are closed and some minor roads may be temporarily shut if weather conditions are particularly poor. In addition, daylight is limited. On the flip side, the key benefit of a driving holiday between November and February is that longer nights provide more chances to spot the northern lights. Winter sports enthusiasts can also take the opportunity to ski, snowshoe, and explore ice caves. A few considerations for driving between November and February include driving slowly on icy roads, checking up on road closures, keeping a paper map and not relying solely on GPS. To make your driving experience safer and easier, you may want to hire a 4-wheel drive. You can also request a rental car with studded winter tires. For more safety advice, read our Iceland Winter Driving Guide. Explore our purpose-made winter self-driving packages. Recommended ring road itinerary. Still seeking inspiration for your driving tour of Iceland? Read on for a suggested itinerary of 7 days and 6 nights that will take you to glaciers, waterfalls, fjords, hot springs, lava fields, and a host of picturesque towns bursting with Icelandic hospitality. You'll kickstart your journey flying into Reykjavik's Keflavik Airport and picking up your rental car. Day 1, Reykjavik. Spend the day exploring Iceland's colorful capital. Delve into Viking history, sample Icelandic cuisine, and stroll down Reykjavik, the city's main thoroughfare, a hotspot for coffee shops, galleries, and boutiques. Day 2, Golden Circle and the South Coast. Head east out of Reykjavik to Thingvellir National Park, before continuing on to Geysir and the waterfalls of Gullfoss, Seljalandsfoss, and Skagafoss. Finish up at the spectacular black sand beach of Reynisfjara and spend the night in Vik. Day 3, via J National Park. Drive along the southern coast of this famous national park and come face to face with ancient glaciers. Stop by Jökulsárlón, a lagoon filled with floating icebergs, and the Diamond Beach, which glitters with chunks of shattered ice. Day 4, the eastern fjords and Lake Mývatn. Follow the ring road along the winding fjords of Iceland's eastern coast, before heading north to Dettifoss, the most powerful waterfall in Europe. Finish up at the volcanic Lake Mývatn, the ideal place to spot the northern lights in winter. Day 5, the northern fjords. After exploring the lava landscapes around Lake Mývatn, head into the charming city of Akureyri to wander through galleries and browse for souvenirs. Finish up the day touring the farmlands of Skagafjörður. Day 6, Reykjavik. On your final day of travel, drive back to Reykjavik, stopping by the Deildartunguvar hot spring and the waterfalls of Hraunfossar and Barnafoss on the way. Day 7, depart. Enjoy one last tour of the capital before dropping off your rental car and heading to Keflavik Airport to fly home. Your Iceland self-drive checklist. If we've inspired you to take a driving holiday around Iceland, then why not get booking? To help the process along, we've put together a checklist that will help you get all the little details right. Rent a car. If you're traveling during the summer months and sticking largely to the ring road, a 2WD vehicle will be adequate. If you're traveling during the winter months, or if you want to go up into the highlands, a 4WD will be necessary. To explore your options, view our rental car information. plan your route, putting together a detailed itinerary for your trip is a good idea. Incorporate attractions, overnight stops, restaurants, supermarkets, petrol stations, and any areas of the route that might be more difficult to traverse. Take a look at our self-drive itineraries. Book accommodation. Accommodation in Iceland ranges from budget hostels and guest houses to luxury suites. Booking in advance, particularly during the high season, is highly recommended. Book attractions. Don't assume that the attractions you want to see will always be available. Sites such as the Blue Lagoon are incredibly popular and can sell out fast during the high season. There can also be high demand for day tours of the Golden Circle and boat trips on Jökulsárlón. With our tours, you always have the option to add optional activities to your booking, such as a Blue Lagoon spa day to wrap up your trip. Be aware of driving regulations. In Iceland, off-road driving is illegal. You must drive with your headlights on year-round, wear a seatbelt at all times, and slow down when moving from paved to gravel roads. Find out more by consulting www.road.is, a site where you can stay up to date on road and weather conditions. Pack wisely. A driving holiday in Iceland requires a few specific items to ensure you stay safe. Using GPS is recommended, but you shouldn't set off without a hand-marked map. Carry a fully charged phone and make sure you have cash or credit cards. Visa and MasterCard are widely accepted. Remember, Nordic Visitor is a travel service that offers a variety of easy and enjoyable self-drive tours. If you'd rather spend your time reading up on cuisine and history than getting stressed over itineraries and learning the Icelandic word for petrol station, make a booking with us. In addition to self-driving tours, which are planned, organized, and supported by our dedicated staff members, we also offer ring road guided tours. Sit back, relax, and take in the unbelievable sights as you're driven around Iceland in style. How long does it take to drive around Iceland? Sometimes I have the feeling people underestimate the size of Iceland, and a common question I often hear is, how long does it take to drive around Iceland? Therefore, I collected a few details about the so-called ring road that goes all around the country, its length, and the time you need to drive around Iceland. Some facts about the ring road in Iceland. Iceland is one of the world's most sparsely populated countries. Almost the whole interior of the island is uninhabited. You can reach this area only during summer and only with a four-wheel drive vehicle. The inhabited parts of Iceland are along the coastline. The ring road is the main road that connects the inhabited parts and runs around Iceland. It is 332 kilometers long, mostly with one lane each direction. The ring road was completed in 1974 and today all parts are paved. How many kilometers can I drive per day? The general speed limit for cars in Iceland is 50 kilometers per hour in urban areas and 90 kilometers per hour on paved rural roads. That means theoretically it would be possible to go all around the island in less than 2 days. However, this is something I highly recommend not to do. Driving in Iceland is often quite different from other countries. For example, there are many single-lane bridges on the ring road. There, you have to go slower and see what the driver on the other side is planning to do. You can also expect sheep on or alongside the road. There are more Icelandic sheep in Iceland than people. During summer they wander around freely. Also, the weather can force you to drive much slower than the allowed speed. Therefore, I highly recommend adding some extra time when planning your trip around Iceland, e.g., with the help of Google Maps. I experienced that the calculated time on Google Maps is often inaccurate. I recommend all visitors in Iceland to include enough time for sightseeing activities each day. Depending on the region, the time of the year, and the planned activities, I would plan to drive between 200 to 300 kilometers per day. There are so many natural highlights to explore along the ring road that you should plan enough time for your self-drive tour around Iceland. How long does it take to drive around Iceland? For a self-drive tour around Iceland, I recommend at least an 8-day itinerary. This gives you 6 days on the road plus 1 arrival and 1 departure day with some time to explore Reykjavik. For people with limited time, this 8 days express tour would perfectly fit. This tour is suitable for guests who want to see the main highlights of Iceland. If you are interested to go on some hikes or add some nice day tours, I recommend to add a few more days if possible. Adding some extra areas to your Iceland self-drive tour. The ring road does not cover all areas of Iceland. Popular extras are the remote Westfjords in the northeast or the beautiful Snæfellsnes Peninsula in the west of Iceland. For the visit of Snæfellsnes, I would add at least 1 additional day. Very popular among our guests is our 10 days round trip with Snæfellsnes included. Snæfellsnes is often called Iceland in miniature because many of the sites Iceland is famous for can be found there. On Snæfellsnes you can visit impressive cliffs, hike trough amazing lava fields, explore black and also white sand beaches, and much more. If you want to see the Westfjords with its breathtaking Dinjandi waterfall, amazing red sand beach and more, I recommend our 14 days full circle tour with the Westfjords and also Snæfellsnes included. Adding extra days is always possible and gives you the chance to visit also some lesser known places of Iceland. Can I go around Iceland in winter? I highly recommend not to plan a round trip between November and April. At this time of the year the weather is unpredictable. Roads might be closed for some days, especially in the northeast. The risk is high to get stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and therefore Iceland Unlimited does not offer any self-drive round trips during winter time. On our website you can find some winter self-drive tours options. If you are not used to drive in winter conditions with ice on the roads and snow, I highly recommend to consider joining one of our guided winter tours. Iceland is a wonderful destination for a road trip, and it does not matter if you plan a tour all around the island or decide to explore only specific areas. There are endless highlights Iceland has to offer, and I wish you a trip of a lifetime. Planning a trip to Iceland in 2022, your easy 10-step checklist. Glacier hikes, puffin sightings, thundering waterfalls, and geothermal wonders. There is so much to be excited about when planning a trip to Iceland. A trip to the land of fire and ice is truly a vacation like no other. Iceland is an incredibly unique destination and offers a magnificent array of once-in-a-lifetime travel experiences, all in a compact location. However, to best take advantage of all that beauty with a limited time frame, you'll need to do quite a bit of Iceland trip planning before you take off. While you could certainly arrive with little advance planning and see some incredible sights, experiencing the best things to do in Iceland isn't as easy as hitting the open road with no. The country's extreme popularity coupled with rural attractions and weather unlike what most people experience in their day-to-day lives means that you'll have a much better time if you carefully plan your trip to Iceland. Follow this step-by-step Iceland travel checklist, and you're bound to have an unforgettable time. Kate Storm and Jeremy Storm on an Iceland glacier tour requires advanced Iceland travel planner. Step 1. Check visa and entrance requirements. Toto, it is definitely not 2019 anymore. While checking visa and entrance requirements has always been important before visiting a foreign country, in 2022 that is far more true than it was a few years ago. This official website provides up-to-date requirements for entering Iceland, including any testing requirements. 25 bucket list-worthy things to do in Iceland. Icelandair also has a detailed page on entry requirements. Don't forget to check any requirements that your home country has for returning, too. In addition to these more topical necessities, don't forget the usual needs, like having more than 6 months of validity left on your passport. Kate Storm in a yellow jacket in front of Seljalandsfoss Fun Stop plan a trip to Iceland. Step 2. Book your flights. Without a doubt, booking flights is one of the most exciting parts of planning a trip to Iceland. Once you book flights, your trip is official and you can start building the details of your adventures in Iceland around the states of your flights. Iceland's Silfra snorkeling experience, 15 important tips plus FAQ. If your dates are somewhat flexible, suggest checking prices a few days before and a few days after your intended arrival and departure dates when shopping for flights to Iceland. You never know what deals you may happen across, as the vast majority of all international flights in Iceland go through Keflavik International Airport in Reykjavik. Shopping for flights to Iceland is a fairly straightforward process. Rainbow Road leading to church in Seyðisfjörður, planning a trip to Iceland. Step 3. Reserve your rental car. While some travelers to Iceland may choose to base themselves in Reykjavik and only take organized tours outside the city, for most visitors, visiting Iceland means that it is time for a road trip. Whether you want to drive Iceland's legendary Ring Road, explore the popular south coast in depth, or get off the beaten path in places like the remote Westfjords, renting a car will deeply enhance your trip to Iceland. 19 sun-soaked summer destinations in Europe. Given Iceland's extreme seasonality, rental cars can be a bit of a hot commodity in the summer, so book as far in advance as you can. We use and recommend Discover Cars to find out which company has the most competitive prices and best rental contract. On our recent Iceland road trip, that ended up being Global Rent-A-Car, and we had a great experience with them. Shop rental cars for your trip to Iceland today. Kate Storm and Jeremy Storm posing in front of a rental car Iceland Ring Road trip. Step 4. Plan your Iceland itinerary. With a seemingly limitless number of beautiful places to explore, there are as many possible Iceland itineraries as there are visitors. A few tried and true options, though, include these amazing routes. The ultimate 10-day Iceland Ring Road itinerary. Iceland Ring Road trip. The most classic Iceland itinerary, a ring road trip is perfect for visitors who have 10+ days in Iceland and want to see it all. From the iconic attractions of South Iceland to the lesser visited corners of the eastern fjords and North Iceland, the ring road makes for an incredible Iceland vacation. Bright turquoise water of Staflagill Canyon, Iceland from above. Iceland South Coast road trip. Have a week or less in Iceland and want to take an epic road trip? Try the popular South Coast. This is where you'll find many of Iceland's most famous attractions, such as Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon, Vatnajökull National Park, and the iconic Skagafoss, just to name a few. 75+ essential Europe travel tips you need to hear. Reykjavik base trip. only have a few days in Iceland. Don't worry, by basing yourself in Reykjavik and taking well-planned day trips, you can enjoy some of the most iconic sites in Iceland very quickly. Blue Lagoon in Iceland with wooden bridges leading over it. Step 5. Finalize your Iceland travel budget. There's simply no getting around this one. Taking a trip to Iceland is expensive. To save money when traveling Iceland on a budget, you can make some concessions like shopping in grocery stores for food, staying in basic lodging, and prioritizing only the experiences that are important to you. But, even with all that, the price tag is still high. How to save money to travel the world, 31 tips plus tricks. Before booking your lodging and attractions, be sure to run the numbers and see exactly what you have to spend. Better to make informed decisions along the way than have a nasty surprise bill at the end of your Iceland vacation. This guide to budgeting for a trip explains how we budget for our travels in a step-by-step way and can help you create an Iceland budget that works for you. Kate Storm and Jeremy Storm standing in a field of lupines. How to plan a trip to Iceland. Step 6. Decide where to stay and make reservations. If you're taking an Iceland road trip, especially during the summer, booking your hotels and/or vacation rentals as far in advance as possible is essential. Most of Iceland's most popular attractions are found in rural areas, and there are often only a few hotels or guesthouses nearby. Read next. 35 best cities to visit in Europe. In order to complete your road trip efficiently, for example, driving the Ring Road, you'll want to have your lodging chosen and booked before starting your trip. We use Booking.com to find and book lodging in Iceland. A few hotels that stood out on our recent Iceland road trip are Hotel Vik I Mýrdal, Hotel Laxinn near Midtvan, and Fosshotel Nupar. Kate Storm sitting in front of Aldajarfoss Iceland waterfalls. Step 7. Book bucket list tours and activities in advance. Glacier hikes, snorkeling between tectonic plates, soaking in the famous Blue Lagoon, riding Icelandic horses. Many of the absolute best things to do in Iceland require booking a tour or ticket. And, like rental cars and hotels, tours and activities have a tendency to sell out in the summer. 15 incredible books about Iceland. If there are any bucket list Iceland experiences you want to make sure you don't miss, be sure to book them when planning your Iceland trip. Here are a few popular options that are great to book in advance. Silfra Snorkeling Tour. Want to snorkel between Europe and North America? Iceland is the only place you can, and we will never forget this incredibly unique experience. Person in Silfra Snorkeling in Iceland. Glacier hiking in Skafadal National Park. Hiking on a glacier is one of the most incredible experiences in Iceland, and we loved this tour. Glacier hiking in Iceland, 13 essential tips plus FAQ. Blue Lagoon. The Blue Lagoon is one of the most famous places in Iceland, and you can't simply show up for the day, especially during the summer. South Iceland day trip. Basing yourself in Reykjavik and don't want to drive in Iceland. This popular day trip will show you Iceland's most famous waterfalls and beyond. Iceland Puffins in Borgarfjörður July. Step 8. Make a packing list. More than most destinations, packing for Iceland requires some advanced planning. The country's extreme climate paired with the fact that most people who plan a trip to Iceland are planning to do things they've never done before, like a hike on a glacier, perhaps, means that you'll likely want to purchase some gear before taking off. While you can certainly find most of what you would need in cities like Reykjavik and Akureyri, most of the best places to visit in Iceland are quite rural, with few stores around. And Iceland is not exactly a budget-friendly place to shop. Kate Storm at Jökulsárlón Lagoon Iceland in a yellow jacket. A detailed breakdown of what to pack for Iceland requires a whole other blog post, but here are a few things we recommend bringing. Travel adapters for Iceland. If you're coming from outside of Europe, you'll definitely need adapters for your electronics. The Ultimate Europe Bucket List, 75 Fun Things to Do in Europe. Waterproof jacket. Mine is no longer available but is similar to this popular jacket, and Jeremy loved this one in Iceland. Sleep mask. Midnight sun during the summer in Iceland is no joke, and a sleep mask is a must. Kate Storm in a yellow jacket in front of Skagafoss. One of the best things to do in Iceland. Lonely Planet Iceland. We don't use travel guides in every destination, but in rural, widespread, land of confusing spellings Iceland, we loved having one. Waterproof pants, perfect for hiking on glaciers with. I use these, Jeremy uses these. Waterproof boots. There's nothing like having warm and dry feet. I adore these boots and have been wearing them for years. Reusable water bottle. Avoid plastic waste, cut your expenses, and enjoy even more of Iceland's fantastic tap water. Win, win, win. Lupines blooming along a river. How to plan a trip to Iceland. Step 9. Purchase travel insurance for your trip to Iceland. Don't forget to buy travel insurance when planning a trip to Iceland. While Iceland is an incredibly safe country to travel in, traveling in general opens you up to vulnerabilities you simply don't have at home. 33 Terrific travel journal ideas, tips plus prompts. If you lose your luggage, have a fender bender in your rental car, get pickpocketed, or, heaven forbid, get injured, you'll be glad you have the insurance. Given how inexpensive travel insurance is when purchased in advance, it's well worth the investment. Waterfall into ocean in Borgarfjörður, Iceland. However, that being said, travel insurance companies have been about as prone to changing requirements over the last couple of years as borders have been. While we generally use and recommend world nomads, be sure to double and triple check coverages for any travel insurance policy these days, especially if you're looking for protection from COVID-19 related issues. Check travel insurance prices and coverage for your Iceland vacation now. Geothermal mud pools near Lake Mitvan. Planning a trip Iceland. Step 10. Make an arrival plan for your trip to Iceland. Once you finally finish planning your trip to Iceland and board your plane bound for the land of fire and ice, you'll still have one final logistical hurdle to overcome before kicking off your adventures, getting from the airport to wherever you're going next. For many travelers, that will mean walking or hopping the shuttle over to whatever rental car office they're using. However, if you're not renting a car on the day you arrive in Iceland, you'll likely still need to get from the airport to the center of town, which is about a 45-minute drive. Coastal Arch on Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Iceland Trip Planner. Bus transfers like this are the most popular and economical option to get from Kef to central Reykjavik for those who aren't driving. If you're looking to splurge as you put your Iceland travel plan into action, though, private transfers like this are also available and will get you to your hotel faster. Both options have their pros and cons, but the time to decide isn't when you're jet-lagged, exhausted, and desperate to be done traveling. A little advanced planning can go a long way and ensure you step off the plane confident that you've planned your perfect Iceland trip. Are you planning a visit to Iceland in 2022? Dealing with almost 2 years of intermittent lockdowns and COVID restrictions has many of us anxious to do some international travel. And understandably, while many of us want to travel, new requirements can be confusing, we are concerned about safety, and we also aren't sure what to do or what's going on anymore. We are all a little bit out of practice. If Iceland has made it to the top of your travel list, then you know it's because of its vibrant capital, charming towns, pristine nature, clean air and water, and exciting outdoor activities to name a few. The land of fire and ice has endless stunning attractions, and the country's response to the COVID-19 pandemic makes it one of the safest countries in the world to visit. If you are planning your visit, your first stop should be to covid.is, which will show you all the entry requirements to travel to and within Iceland. If you are eligible to travel to Iceland, then you can get planning. What's new in Iceland? This just in. Lonely Planet has selected the Westfjords to be at the top of the list of best regions to visit in 2022. You can find the list in Lonely Planet's Best in Travel publication, which consists of 10 best countries, regions and cities. Sigurdur Dag Gudmundsdóttir, head of Visit Iceland, said, "It's fantastic news that the Westfjords have been recognized as one of the world's best regions by Lonely Planet. The region is the oldest corner of Iceland and is home to some of the destination's most dramatic scenery and best natural attractions. Over the last few years, Visit Westfjords have been working effortlessly to make the off-the-beaten-track location not only an all-year destination, but more accessible to visitors. The Westfjords offers adventurous the chance to experience untouched nature, incredible landscapes, diverse sights and cultural attractions the Westfjords have to offer. What's trending for travelers in Iceland? Small group tours are quickly gaining popularity. We offer our Volcanoes and Glaciers Soft Adventure Tour, Iceland Complete Tour, and our Spanish-language Maravillas de Islandia Tour with small group departures max 16 people. Our Popular Across the Wilderness Tour also just has a max of 24 people. Solo travel options for independent travelers. Solo travel continues to be on the rise for all age groups, especially among women travelers. People want to join groups as it offers a great way to meet new people and travel in safety, but not pay large single supplements. We offer a discount for our solo travelers on select departures of Volcanoes and Glaciers. New boutique accommodation options. More and more people, especially younger travelers, opt to stay in unique accommodation on their vacations, and for good reason. Boutique options range from hotels with local charm to glamping in a yurt. Our new boutique accommodation for the Volcanoes and Glaciers road trip and the Ring Road Highlights trip offer the option to stay in a hand-picked selection of boutique hotels and lodges suited to individual tastes. More value for road trippers and self-drive guests. Road tripping through Iceland offers loads of freedom and flexibility. We are now the only company in Iceland to offer free in-vehicle unlimited Wi-Fi in our summer 2022 road trips. Now it's easy to use the GPS on your personal mobile device to navigate your route each day. We also have a new version of the Iceland Travel Companion app that works with your mobile device and provides great information on 1,500 points of interest across the island. The northern lights might be easier to see than ever. The next solar cycle has begun, meaning sunspots that help influence northern lights are becoming more abundant, and the aurora displays are already starting to get brighter. They will be at their peak between 2023-2026. If you want to witness the magical northern lights in Iceland, then try to plan your visit mid-September to mid-April. Booking tips for those interested in traveling with us to Iceland in 2022. Yes, book early. We anticipate Iceland will continue to be a great option for people. Iceland is a small country with limited accommodation available compared to other destinations, so early booking is important. Insure yourself. Add some extra peace of mind to your driving holiday with our new Best Cover Protection full coverage insurance plan. This is especially useful for people taking longer driving holidays or who plan to drive in more rugged areas of the country. Full coverage includes unlimited KM, collision and damages waiver, theft protection, unlimited in-car Wi-Fi, one additional driver, super collision and damages waiver, windshield protection, gravel damage, tires and wheels, sand and ash protection, and VAT. Consider summer travel outside the peak season. May, early June, late August and September are great times to visit Iceland. There is plenty of daylight and summer-like conditions but fewer travelers. Prices for car rental and some accommodation is lower in these periods. Plan to enjoy the moment on your road trip or self-drive holiday. We are getting more and more requests from people who want to travel at a relaxed pace and enjoy Iceland's peaceful atmosphere. They ask to stay several nights in the same place during a trip so they can explore each area more. We offer several itineraries that include several nights in the same place. Our customized option also allows you to create an itinerary that builds in extra nights in the same place. Lastly, prepare for your trip to Iceland. The Iceland Travel Podcast is a great way to get up to speed on all things Iceland. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and the Podbean app. We also have a number of exciting videos and features, including our Spotlight series, which shows the very best of Iceland from destinations to local attractions such as the volcano at Geldingadalur, zip lining in Vik to the beer spa in Iceland's fantastic north. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to enjoy. If you are taking a road trip, self-drive tour with us, you will receive exclusive access to our Iceland Travel Companion app, which you can now access from your mobile phone. We encourage you to get ahead and download your map of Iceland in advance, browse the 1,500 points of interest and plan your activities. Iceland Tours highlights: explore Reykjavik, the northernmost capital in the world, a lively city with many museums, galleries, restaurants, shows, and concerts. Marvel at the awe-inspiring glacier-capped volcanoes, sheer basalt cliffs, and lava fields of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Get active in Akureyri, which has some of Iceland's best hiking trails as well as skiing, rafting, caving, and horseback riding. Admire the spectacular natural beauty of Siglufjordur, a historic fishing town close to the Arctic Circle. Soothe your tired muscles in the naturally warm waters of the Mývatn Nature Baths, an Icelandic hot spring near the magnificent Lake Mývatn. Come face to face with puffins and look out for herds of wild reindeer in the remote Eastfjords region. Discover the mighty Vatnajökull Glacier, located in a staggeringly rich landscape with active volcanoes and incredible rock formations. Climb to the top of the Skagafoss waterfall for breathtaking views of Iceland's southern coastline. Sample local specialties like smoked puffin, wild goose, and if you're up to it, putrefied shark, washed down with one of many prize-winning Icelandic beers. Iceland Tours travel tips. There are direct affordable flights to Iceland from major US hubs. Look out for deals from Icelandair and WOW Air. Prices can drop to $99 one way. Driving is the best way to explore Iceland's majestic beauty, but don't get caught up in the logistics. Book an escorted Iceland tour to see all the top attractions. Gas is imported into Iceland and can be extremely expensive, so if you're planning to drive, factor this into your budget. Pack for all 4 seasons because Iceland has some of the most dynamic weather anywhere in the world. Don't forget a thermal base layer, swimsuit, rain jacket, and hiking boots. Credit cards are widely accepted, even at remote gas stations, but make sure your card has a chip and PIN. English is widely spoken around Iceland, but learning a few phrases of Icelandic is a great way to make friends with the locals, or at least invite a chuckle at your pronunciation. In the summer months, the 20-plus hours of daylight and the enthralling landscape will tempt you to pack in a lot of sightseeing into one day, but it can be exhausting if you don't keep track of time. Always use experienced guides to experience the glaciers safely. Take a dip in the Blue Lagoon. Pricey, yes. Touristy, you bet. But Iceland's world-famous geothermal spa, the Blue Lagoon, is popular for a reason. The ethereal blue waters contrast starkly with the surrounding black lava fields, and the roiling clouds of steam make it a dreamy setting for a few hours of relaxation. The mineral-rich waters can do wonders for your skin, and if you're in the mood for some pampering, there's a world-class spa on-site with a range of treatments on offer. You should know, the Blue Lagoon is located near the airport, about 35 minutes from Reykjavik. It's open year-round and the water temperature is maintained at a perfect 39 degrees Celsius. As Iceland's most popular attraction, the Blue Lagoon does sell out every day. Pre-booking is required. In the busy tourist season, you may need to book weeks in advance. See the Northern Lights. Marooned at the top of the world, on the edge of the Arctic Circle, Iceland is one of the remotest places on the planet, which makes it one of the best places to see the aurora borealis. This otherworldly display of colorful, dancing lights occurs when particles from the sun become trapped in the Earth's magnetic field. The sight of unbelievable colors moving across the Arctic sky in a celestial ballet is sure to remain imprinted on your memory forever. Best time to visit. Peak Northern Lights viewing season is September to March, when the long, dark nights extend for up to 20 hours a day. A full moon can drown out the lights and spoil the show, so plan your Northern Lights hunt accordingly. The display is brighter and stronger close to the spring and autumn equinoxes on March 21st and September 21st, respectively. Discover the beautiful Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Extending 55 miles into the Atlantic Ocean on Iceland's west coast, the Snæfellsnes Peninsula is the perfect place to immerse yourself in Icelandic scenery and culture. Towering basalt cliffs formed by ancient lava, natural mineral springs heated by geothermal energy, golden sand beaches with resident seal colonies, and tranquil fishing villages with colorful wooden houses make the peninsula a feast for the eyes. You'll find yourself reaching for your camera at every turn. Best time to visit. The summer months will reward you with nearly constant daylight and pleasant weather, but visiting in the winter gives you the chance to see the landscape draped in snow and to catch a glimpse of the Northern Lights. Marvel at the Skagafoss waterfall. Marvel at the Skagafoss waterfall. Fed by two glaciers, the Skagafoss waterfall is a magnificent veil of water that plummets nearly 200 feet, enveloping visitors in clouds of spray. Legend has it that a Viking named Thrassi hid a chest of gold under the falls. One young man almost succeeded in retrieving it, they say, but came away with only the ring of the chest handle, which now decorates the door of the church in Skagr. The river below the falls is rich in salmon and is a popular spot for local fishermen in the summer. You should know, Skagafoss is about a 2-hour drive from Reykjavik. There is no entrance fee to visit the falls. You can climb to the top of the falls for stunning views, but the nearly 500 steps can be quite steep in places. Hike the Vatnajökull Glacier. The mighty Vatnajökull Glacier is 3,000 square miles of jagged mountains, deep crevices, and giant icebergs floating in glacial lagoons. The majestic scenery is best explored on a guided hike where you'll have a chance to see the glacial sculptures up close and experience the raw power of this natural wonder. You should know, there are hikes to suit every fitness level, including fairly easy walks. The guides will provide ice crampons to attach to your hiking boots. You should wear warm, waterproof clothing and hiking boots that have a thick sole and cover your ankles. The crampons cannot be attached to normal shoes and hiking boots may be available to rent. The price of the hiking tour typically includes the services of an expert guide and safety equipment. Explore the Eastfjords. Explore the Eastfjords. Don't fancy elbowing your way through a crowd to glimpse a famous waterfall. Ditch the popular Golden Circle and Ring Road routes and head to the Eastfjords instead. This relatively undiscovered part of Iceland has a fairytale-like atmosphere. It's a treasure trove of spectacular scenery with snow-capped mountains and cascading waterfalls. The tranquil and picturesque village of Seyðisfjörður, with its multicolored wooden houses, will charm you with its relaxed atmosphere and artistic vibe. Best time to visit. Summer is the best season to go to the Eastfjords. You can arrive in Seyðisfjörður on a ferry that sails the majestic 17-kilometers fjord. If you're planning to stay overnight, book accommodation well in advance. Visit Lake Mývatn. This shallow lake, surrounded by wetlands, is one of Iceland's most ecologically diverse areas. The jagged lava rocks are home to an abundance of bird life, especially in the summer months when migratory birds come calling. Visit Krafla a beautiful crater lake, or stroll the Hofti Lakeside Walk, which presents a dramatically different landscape of forested areas and lush pastures. You should know, Mývatn means midge in Iceland, referring to the small flying insects that infest the area in the warmer months. But that doesn't mean you have to miss out on the unique beauty of the area. Just come prepared with insect repellent and a protective net for your face. Get close to nature in Siglufjordur. It is Iceland's northernmost town with a population of less than 1,500. The small fishing village of Siglufjordur is an area of spectacular natural beauty. The mountains and fjords create a majestic backdrop for an endless stream of outdoor activities, including golfing, swimming, hiking, and skiing. The town also has a flourishing cultural scene with museums, galleries, workshops, and a variety of restaurants. You should know, Siglufjordur sits on the Troll Peninsula, Iceland's best-kept ski secret. Imagine ski runs stripped of restaurants, boundary ropes, and other skiers. And you can go heli skiing long after the season is over in the Rockies and the Alps. The area has many steep runs to challenge experienced skiers, but it's not suitable for beginners. Iceland Tour Packages. Quick facts: summer has the best conditions to tour almost any place or attraction in Iceland. However, the winter also has its charms. Despite that, the average temperatures in the winter are around 32 Fahrenheit in the south and 14 Fahrenheit in the north, there are still a lot of perks to visiting Iceland in the off-season. Summer, July to August, best season. The best and most popular time to visit Iceland is in the summer, when the sun rises at 3 a.m. and sets around midnight, giving you 20+ hours of daylight. The weather is moderate with average temperatures in the 50 seconds and 60 seconds. July and August are peak tourist season, so be prepared for crowds at the popular attractions if you visit during these months. Winter, October to March, good season. In the winter season, which extends from October to March, the days are short and precipitation peaks, with the southern and western parts of the island receiving the maximum rainfall. However, despite the country's name, Icelandic winters are not bitterly cold owing to the warming influence of the North Atlantic currents. But December has excellent conditions for viewing the northern lights if that's on your bucket list. You can also make major savings on airfare, accommodation, and activities in the off-season, and the crowds are much thinner at popular attractions. Iceland Tours. Frequently asked questions. What are Iceland Tours? Iceland Tours are escorted group holidays that give you the chance to see all that the country has to offer without getting caught up in the logistics of arranging accommodation and transportation. It's a great value vacation, keeping in mind that accommodation and gas in Iceland can be quite expensive. You don't have to bother with driving or risk getting lost. All you have to do is sit back and soak in the panorama unfolding before you. What's more, Iceland Tours give you the chance to meet and enjoy the company of other like-minded travelers. What's included on Iceland Tours? Land-only packages include accommodation, transportation, most meals, and sightseeing at many top attractions in Iceland. Air-inclusive packages include all this plus round-trip airfare from a U.S. hub. An escorted Iceland tour includes the services of an experienced tour guide who will give you tons of interesting information about the places you're visiting. They will also be on hand to help with suggestions for optional activities and restaurant recommendations, etc. What's the best Iceland tour? Iceland will look very different depending on what time of the year you're visiting. You can come back again in a different season and see a completely new country. If the northern lights are a big attraction for you, these are best viewed in the dark winter months. If you want the benefit of long days and moderate weather, then a summer Iceland tour is your best bet. How much do Iceland tours cost? The cost of Iceland tours is heavily season dependent. In the summer, you can expect to pay around $300 per person per day. In the winter, you might be able to snag a bargain at $100 per person per day. To see the incredible diversity of the island, we recommend a 9 to 11-day Iceland tour. Floating alone where the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans meet, Iceland offers stunning natural wonders, kind and gregarious people, and unique attractions. Even a short visit is worthwhile, as it's an easy hop from the capital of Reykjavik to unforgettable day trip excursions, the famous Golden Circle route. Studded with geysers and thundering waterfalls, the south coast with its glaciers, black beaches, and jagged volcanic landscape, and of course the famous Blue Lagoon thermal baths. Those with more time thrill to the 800-mile ring road that circles the entire island. Yet Iceland's otherworldly magic comes not so much from its abundance of natural splendors, but from its people's strong connection to their landscape, where it seems every rock has a 1,000-year-old name and a legend to go along with it. A geological wonderland that feels like the Nature Channel come to life. Ice caps and glaciers, spouting geysers and steaming solfataras, volcanoes, raging rivers and magnificent waterfalls, clusters of puffins and razorbills, and cavorting whales just offshore, it's all just another day in Iceland. This country's many geological wonders have brought a tourism boom, with most first-time visitors driving the Golden Circle route through the southwest. But lively Reykjavik has plenty of man-made attractions, too, including the Majestic Hallgrímskirkja church and a music scene that doesn't quit. Geothermal baths are also a major draw, such as the mineral-rich Blue Lagoon. Iceland is known as the land of fire and ice. Its dramatic landscapes carved through history give way to a destination home to steaming volcanoes while holding vast sheets of ice and a countryside dotted by small towns and lit up by the northern lights. It's a sight to behold, and no wonder it's one of the hottest travel destinations on Earth. Right now, the US lists Iceland as having a level 4 advisory due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. For those who choose to go, the country is relatively safe, requiring masks indoors and that visitors be vaccinated for COVID. There's no quarantine for travelers. However, travelers will need to test negative for COVID before departing their home country and take a test 2 days after arriving in Iceland. There is also a pre-registration at covid.is where visitors upload their information and fill out a health screening questionnaire. Ways to explore in Iceland. Iceland can be a jumping-off place for a longer trip or serve as a one-stop destination, serving up natural features that include glaciers, hot springs, geysers, active volcanoes, portentous peaks, and vast lava deserts over an expansive landscape. Visitors can circumnavigate the island nation on a cruise ship or embark on their own self-drive adventure. It's easy to get around the country on one's own or enjoy any number of small group and larger group itineraries. The hub of activity in Iceland is in its capital city, Reykjavik, which is home to a buzzing cultural scene where art museums, music venues, galleries, and eateries can all be enjoyed by visitors. Visitors usually fly into Keflavik International Airport, the country's main hub for flights, located approximately 30 miles from Reykjavik. Those who are planning a trip can save some money traveling to one of the most expensive countries in the world by saving on airfare with new airline, Play. Icelandair is the main carrier, however, and is integral in connecting guests to Europe should travelers want to follow up the fun they had in Iceland in places such as Rome or Paris. Popular attractions. The country is home to some standout attractions. One of the biggest draws for guests thinking of a last-minute trip to Iceland now is the chance to see the northern lights. While the aurora borealis is a wintertime attraction, in the summer, the midnight sun leads to late nights between mid-May and mid-August. It is an excellent time to circumnavigate Iceland, taking in must-see sites such as Gullfoss Waterfall or the glaciers in Vatnajökull and Snæfellsjökull national parks. Iceland, the land of ice and fire, Viking folklore, pristine scenery, and let's not forget the northern lights. Are you planning to visit Iceland? You should be. I've just returned from my 5th trip to Iceland, and to be frank, it was nothing short of incredible. I wanted to go to Iceland forever, no joke. It was on the first bucket list I made when I was 7. Yes, I was a pretentious child. And no, nothing has changed since, and now I just can't stop going back. This spectacular country draws visitors to its otherworldly landscapes year-round. If you are considering booking a ticket, just do it. You won't regret it. Iceland Travel Guide. Beautiful, right? Sounds great, right? But you want to know when the best time of year to travel to Iceland is. This guide has everything you need to know to plan the perfect trip. When is the best time to visit Iceland? The best time of year to travel to Iceland is during the shoulder season in May and September. Why is this the best time of year to visit Iceland? Turf House in Iceland. Iceland during May and September are the best time of year to go to Iceland because they offer lower prices and fewer crowds but without the harsh weather conditions found in the winter. Many people worry about whether Iceland is expensive. The answer is yes, but traveling in the shoulder season helps to reduce the cost. Where will you discover next? It's time for your next great adventure. Travel tips, guides, and inspiration straight to your inbox. First name, your email, subscribe. I consent to receiving emails and personalized ads. Most of the museums and attractions that close during the winter months are open during May and September, so you're less restricted than in the winter months when it comes to visiting these too. The weather can still be a bit breezy and it can snow in the country's interior. Mountain access is more limited than in the summer months. However, when you weigh this against the lower number of visitors and cheaper prices, I think it's worth the sacrifice. The best time to visit Iceland, May versus September. If May and September are the best times of year to visit Iceland, there are still a few distinct differences between them. Here are some of the things you should consider when you're choosing between them. Want longer daylight hours for your Iceland trip? Visit Iceland in May. Iceland off the beaten path. Iceland in May. You will hear a lot about the midnight sun during the peak summer season, but you still get a lot of daylight hours during May and September. In May you get between 16 and 20 hours of daylight. I'm figuring that even the very best of you guys need to sleep, so this is plenty of time to get out and see the bigger attractions early in the morning or later in the evening when there doesn't tend to be any crowds. May is also one of the best times to go for a road trip in Iceland, thanks to a combination of long daylight hours and clearer roads. Tip: go to attractions early in the morning or during the evening, night during May's longer days for fewer crowds. In September the days are shorter, with between 14 minutes 11 hours of daylight. Want to see the northern lights? Visit Iceland in September. Northern Lights in Iceland. Northern Lights in Vado. May's long daylight hours means that the Northern Lights are a no-no. The sky never really gets dark enough to see the aurora borealis in action. If you want to time your visit for the best time to see the Northern Lights in Iceland, but want to avoid the cold and sometimes tough conditions of visiting Iceland in the winter, go during September. It's not clear why, but the lights are often strongest during the spring and autumn equinoxes. Plus, you don't have to deal with the freezing temperatures of the winter months. Want to maximize your chances of seeing the phenomena? Stay in one of Iceland's Northern Lights hotels. Read more. When is the best time to see the Northern Lights? Want to go whale watching? Go in May or September. September also happens to be a good month to go whale watching. It's a good time to see orcas. Want to see lots of bird life? Go in May. Arctic Tern. Arctic Tern. Late May is a good time to see bird life, but birds start to migrate to Iceland earlier in the month, so your chances of bird spotting are pretty high throughout the whole month. During my visit in early May, many of the migratory birds had already started to arrive in Iceland. Seabirds nested in rugged cliffs made for some great spotting opportunities. We even had a chance to see Arctic terns. Did you know they migrate from the Antarctic to the Arctic and back again every year? It's one of the farthest annual bird migrations at a whopping minimum distance of 12,000 miles. Puffins are best seen from mid-May to mid-August. You'll want to plump for May over September if you want to maximize your chance of viewing them. Want to go horse riding? Go in May or September. Icelandic horse. Icelandic horse in Vado. Iceland is famous for its cute, stocky and rather small horses. Warning, don't talk about their size to their face, it's a touchy subject. Oh, and for heaven's sake, don't you dare call them ponies. Exploring Iceland on horseback is the adventure of a lifetime. You can easily arrange multi-day horse treks in different parts of the country. May and September are both good times to go as the weather is cool enough to make longer rides a pleasant experience. Want to get off the beaten track? Go in September. There is hardly anyone around in Jökulsárlón in September. Crowds at the big attractions may be thinner in both May and September, but some of the more difficult to reach destinations might not yet be accessible in May after the winter months. If you are planning on traveling to remote destinations, particularly those in the hills and mountains, you're better off planning your visit for September. The best time to travel to Iceland by activity and season. May and September are the best times to go to Iceland overall, but if you want to focus on a particular season or activity, you should refer to these sections. Need a few more ideas? Here are 10 tongue-in-cheek things people never tell you about visiting Iceland. Best time to visit Iceland in winter. Winter in Iceland. Winter in Iceland in Vado. I'm not going to dress this up. Winter in Iceland can be cold, like losing extremities cold, but it can also be a magical time to visit, with the low sun casting a soft light that's perfect for photography and plenty of darkness to up the chances of seeing the northern lights. The best time to visit Iceland in winter is either in November or February. The shortest day in December welcomes a rather measly 4 hours of daylight. Compare this to 8 hours at the beginning of November and 10 at the end of February and you get my point. Tip: if you are traveling to Iceland in winter, make sure you pack lots of thermal winter clothing. You will need it. The lack of daylight can be a blessing or a curse, depending on what you are after. For aurora hunters, the long periods of night sky mean the opportunity to see the northern lights as early as 5 p.m. For anyone looking to spend time outdoors or photograph Iceland's beautiful landscapes, it can be a real challenge to plan around the short daylight hours. Still, the sight of the snowy tundra, punctuated by volcanoes, glaciers and hot springs is impressive enough that you might not care. Road closures on smaller roads can also be a problem if you're planning on accessing more remote destinations. Best time to visit ice caves and glaciers in Iceland. Winter in Iceland. Winter in Iceland in Vado. You can access some ice caves and glaciers all year round, but some can only be visited during the colder winter months. The best time to visit ice caves in Iceland is between November and March, when almost all of the ice caves are open. There are a few, like those at Lanyarkut, that can be accessed as late as June, and others such as the Keisha Ice Cave that can be accessed year-round. However, to maximize your chances of taking an ice cave tour, you should visit between November and March. Best time to visit Iceland for skiing. Iceland's ski season runs between December and April. You're better off going in February and March as the daylight hours are longer and the conditions are generally better too. Best time to visit Iceland in summer. Reynisfjara Black Sand Beach, Iceland. Summer is the peak season in Iceland, no doubt about it. Unless you are heading off the beaten track, expect crowds and you can expect high prices across the island. Thanks to its proximity to the Arctic Circle, June and July welcome almost 24 hours of daylight. It's not quite the true midnight sun of the Arctic Circle proper, but it's pretty impressive nonetheless. Early July, before schools break for summer holidays, is probably the best time to go to Iceland in the summer. The temperatures are warmest during July and August, but the crowds are marginally lower outside of the holidays. Locals joke about the country's fickle weather. Fredrik Pelson, owner of Iceland's prestigious hotel Ranga, most aptly summarized it, saying, "Ask me about the weather in Iceland and I'll say ask me in a minute." In short, it changes all the time. This is just as true in the summer months as in the other seasons. Tip: Iceland's weather is notoriously unpredictable. Even if you are visiting during the summer months, you should come prepared for rainy and blustery days. Warm weather is by no means guaranteed. Best time to visit the Blue Lagoon in Iceland. Sky Lagoon, Iceland. Sky Lagoon, Iceland. Geothermal waters play a crucial role in Icelandic life, perhaps none more so than the public pools and hot baths that form an essential part of everyday life to most Icelanders. You can't go to Iceland and not visit a hot spring or pool. The most famous of these is the Blue Lagoon, a striking blue geothermal spa near to Reykjavik. But there's also the stunning Sky Lagoon, which recently opened and is completely gorgeous too. You can visit the Blue Lagoon and most of Iceland's more accessible hot springs year-round. That said, the best time to visit the Blue Lagoon is during May and September when the temperatures are still warm, but it's a bit quieter. Tip: if you are planning on visiting the Blue Lagoon in the summer months, book as far ahead as possible to avoid disappointment. Looking to bathe like the locals do? Skip the big names and visit the community swimming pools. They're generally outside and come with pools of different temperatures. Perfect for a few hours of relaxation without the heaving crowds. Best time to see the Northern Lights in Iceland. Northern Lights in Iceland. Generally, the best time to see the Northern Lights in Iceland is between September and April. Sightings can begin as early as mid to late August, but this varies from year to year. The equinoxes, in September and March, are particularly good times to see the aurora. They're also warmer than the winter months, and the longer daylight hours means you can plan more activities and see more of what Iceland has to offer during your stay. Remember though, that sightings are never, ever guaranteed, so it's best not to plan your whole trip around seeing the lights. Want to know more? Read my comprehensive guide to the Northern Lights. Best time to visit Iceland for whale watching. Whale watching in Iceland. Whale watching in Vado. There are 23 different whale species in and around Iceland's waters. Whale watching tours run all year round. However, the best time to visit Iceland for whale watching and other sea life will depend on which part of the country you are visiting and what you are planning to see. May through September is the best time of year to see humpback whales in Iceland. In the winter months, whale watching in Iceland becomes challenging due to regularly inclement weather conditions. While this is the best time of year to see a fin whale in Iceland, it's also the best time of year for gale force winds and rough seas. You may encounter anything from sunshine and blue skies to driving rain, sleet and snow. Go prepared. Tip: a general rule of thumb is that the further north you go, the wider the window you will have for seeing whales and other sea life. Here are a few pointers to bear in mind when planning your visit. Orcas frolic off of Iceland's west coast during February and March. June is the best time to visit Iceland to see blue whales. The summer months have the highest proportion of whale sightings overall. Best time to hike in Iceland. The best time to hike in Iceland is undoubtedly between May and September, when daylight is plentiful and there's less chance of rain or snow. June, July and August are the warmest and all the trails and mountain roads are open, making it easier to plan your hiking trip. Of course, glaciers are best seen in the winter when they're covered with deep snow, but they can be hazardous during this time of year due to extreme cold and slippery surfaces. Hiking boots in Iceland. Moss background. Okay, I'm not exactly hiking, but I have my boots on and that totally counts. Read next, the best hikes in Europe. Is there a worse time to visit Iceland? The worst time to visit Iceland for the crowds is June to August. Many of the country's biggest attractions are very, very busy during this time. On the other hand, the worst time to visit Iceland for outdoors activities is understandably the winter months, when the cold and dark restrict all but the most adventurous of people. What are the seasons in Iceland? High season. High season runs between June and August. June and July see the midnight sun, but the days are still long during August. This is also the time when Iceland is at its warmest. The weather can still be very unpredictable though. Best for outdoor activities, long summer days, whale watching and bird life. Worst for crowds, all of the crowds. Shoulder season. Shoulder season is May, September and the early part of October. This is the best time of year to travel to Iceland for an all-round experience. You don't have the same number of tourists as the high season, but each month has its own attractions. Bird watching in May, northern light spotting in September is two examples. Best for lower prices, fewer tourists and still generally good access to attractions. Worst for midnight sun. Low season. Low season runs from mid-October to the end of April. Daylight is pretty much non-existent in December and temperatures can plummet to -30 degrees Celsius and wind chill can make it feel even colder than that. Best for ice caves, glaciers and low crowds. Worst for getting off the beaten track. Thanks to road closures, outdoors activities and many attractions are closed. Conclusion: 5 things to consider when you're deciding the best time of year to visit Iceland for you. Are you going for an all-round experience? If yes, go in May or September. If you do want to do any activities such as whale watching, bird watching, hiking or skiing, check the best months for these activities before booking. Do you hate crowds? If yes, avoid busier destinations during the summer months. Do you want to see the northern lights? If yes, go between September and April. Do you want to keep costs as low as possible? If yes, visit in shoulder season or low season. Best time to visit Iceland. Need to know where to stay in Iceland. Hotel Ranga is South Iceland's only 4-star hotel, combining high-end facilities and gourmet dining with a typical Icelandic friendliness and comfortable rooms. It's the perfect base for your Icelandic trip at any time of year. If you're visiting during the winter months, the Hotels and House Observatory offers some of the best stargazing opportunities in Iceland. They even have an in-house astronomer to help you navigate the night sky. Add to that in-depth local knowledge and staff who will help you plan and enjoy your dream trip to Iceland, and there's no better place to really #KnoIceland. Check prices and availability for Hotel Ranga. How to get to Iceland. There are a number of budget carriers offering flights to Iceland for competitive prices. Check flights on Skyscanner now. How long to stay in Iceland? That's the million-dollar question. I would recommend 3-7 days for a shorter trip, 2 weeks if you're planning to do a longer trip like the Ring Road. Still, this 2-day Iceland trip itinerary packs a lot in. I'm so excited to share photos and an itinerary from our recent trip to Iceland. I'm including everything we did and all the best Iceland attractions that you absolutely cannot miss. These are some of the top-rated tourist attractions. Iceland has become such a hot spot for travel, and I feel like every week someone on my Instagram feed pops up sharing pics from their trip visiting this incredible country. Just over the last few years, Iceland's number of annual tourist visitors has doubled, and they now receive around 2 million visitors a year. Check in. For the first few nights of our trip, we were in Reykjavik as our home base. We stayed at an adorable Airbnb owned by a lovely woman named Elsa. Her bright red house was so cozy and cute, and we loved all of the pretty details. It was also in a very central area, and we were literally able to walk everywhere we wanted to go in Reykjavik. This Airbnb also has parking spots, which are a hot commodity in downtown Reykjavik and perfect for us since we had a car rental for our day trips. We love staying in this charming spot. We learned a ton, and it's nice to have some context for the culture and new city you're about to experience. One thing that surprised me that I loved learning about was how progressive Iceland is. They're very pro-gay rights. They elected their first female president in 1980, they had an openly lesbian president in the early 2000s, and their parliament is currently working on a law that guarantees equal wages for men and women. Clearly, we could all learn a little something from Iceland. The Golden Circle tour is a must-do on a first-timer's trip to Iceland. Before our trip, I was getting it confused with the Ring Road, which goes all the way around Iceland, and I kept wondering why people were telling us to do this crazy drive. But the Golden Circle is easy to do in a half day from Reykjavik and hits up a few of Iceland's top sites. During most drives in Iceland, you'll also spot beautiful Icelandic horses. I was so excited to hop out and pet these sweet and gentle guys. Seriously, could have just played with them all day. The Great Jacer is the Jacer that all Jacers are named after. There are a bunch of little Jacers in geothermal areas that you can watch boil and steam, and it's pretty magical. But the big Jacer erupts every few minutes or so, and it's so fun to watch. You can see the hot water, and the anticipation as it slowly boils up just kills ya. If you like this video, please subscribe our channel. Thanks for watching.